When I was a kid, my best friend's name was Will. Will and I would stay over at each other's houses all the time. It was always a lot of fun when we would have sleepovers, and usually, we would watch movies or play video games. This happened when we were both 11 years old. I remember that I went over to Will's house to spend the night. He lived just a few miles from me, and Will had a kind of large backyard. There was also a bit of a woods back there as well. After I went to Will's house, we probably just played video games. That's what we usually did. I remember that his parents went to bed, but we stayed up late. We were in Will's bedroom, and he had a TV in his room. At probably like 1 in the morning, we were still gaming and going strong. It was the summertime, and we didn't have school the next day or anything. But also, because it was summer, Will's room got kind of hot. I remember he walked over to open up his window because it was cool at night outside. There was also a breeze. But after opening up his window, I heard him say, "That's weird." I wondered what exactly he was talking about. When I asked him, he said that he thought he saw somebody in his backyard. I got up and walked over to him to look. We hadn't been able to see out of his window because he always had it covered with a blanket. He also didn't have a great view of things unless you were standing right by the window and looking out of it. When I looked, I didn't see anybody. Will said that the guy was gone now. There were quite a few trees and bushes in Will's backyard. Hearing that Will thought he saw a man back there was creepy, but it was also kind of exciting. I asked Will where he was and what he looked like and stuff. Will said that he only saw the guy for like a second, and he went behind one of the trees so he didn't get a good look. He also said that he was kind of far away. We kept watching the window for quite a while but didn't see anything. Will then asked me if I wanted to go out there. I guess we were feeling brave. I said yes. It was really dumb looking back, and we should have just stayed inside. But we decided to go outside and look around to make sure that things were okay. We left Will's bedroom and walked through his house to the back door. We decided to go out of the back door for his garage, which was connected to the house. After we got outside, it was very dark and quiet. There was the sound of leaves rustling in the wind, but that was it. We walked close to the house at first, just looking around. Everything seemed fine. We quickly went from feeling kind of nervous to relaxed. It seemed like whoever was in the backyard was gone now. We walked a little bit farther out into Will's backyard and got kind of distracted by finding one of Will's footballs. It was lying behind a tree from where we had lost it in the yard not long before. Will picked it up and threw it at me. We started to toss the ball around a little bit and kind of wandered off to the back part of his yard by the woods. It was then that we heard a noise coming from sort of by the house. We looked back and saw a man coming out behind a bush about 10 feet from the side of his house. The guy then went right up next to his house and on the side of it. He then disappeared out of our sight. The man did not look in our direction, and we didn't know if he knew we were back here or not. There was a good chance that he had heard us, though we were probably at least 100 feet away. Now we were in a tough spot. We wanted to go back inside, but were so far away from the house. Will said that we had to go back, but I didn't want to go near the guy. The back door to the garage that we came out of was also unlocked. I just hoped that the man wouldn't go over there. The good thing for us was that the garage door was on the opposite side of the house where the man was. By now, the guy was long out of our sight and had disappeared on the side of the house. We didn't know if he was in the front yard now or still on the side. Will and I decided to run back. He counted to 3, and then we both took off sprinting as fast as we possibly could for the back door. I didn't look in the direction where the man had gone the entire time. I didn't want to know where he was. Pretty soon, we made it to the back door. Will and I both went in as fast as we could and then closed it. Will locked the door as soon as we were inside the garage. It was a crazy adrenaline rush, and for just a second when we made it in, I felt relieved. But then we heard the doorknob turn. This was probably less than 5 seconds after Will had locked the door. I couldn't believe it. Will and I ran back to the door leading inside his house and went inside. We made sure to lock that door as well, and then Will ran up to his parents' bedroom and woke them up. Within minutes, the police were called, and Will and I were hiding under his bed. The police got there a short time later and searched the entire property but never found the guy. He must have left. We answered questions as best we could, but we never had a very good look at the guy. We only saw him at a long distance and in the dark. I really couldn't tell any significant details about him. After the police left, we finally went to sleep. The guy never returned. Luckily, I went to Will's house countless more times after that, and stayed over many times as well. Nothing like that ever happened again. This incident occurred when I was just a kid, around 8 or 9 years old. During that time, I had a bunch of friends at school, and one of them, Adam, was throwing a birthday party to which I got an invitation. The party was scheduled for a Friday after school, with plans for a sleepover at Adam's house. Only a handful of people were invited, maybe 5 or 6, if my memory serves me right. While I knew most of the guys pretty well, there were a few I didn't know so much. After school on Friday, my mom dropped me off at Adam's house in the afternoon. The details of what we did are a bit fuzzy, but I do recall there being pizza and ice cream that night. Eventually, we all gathered in Adam's basement to watch a movie, where we planned to spend the night. The basement was quite comfortable, featuring a large TV in the main living room area with a few couches where one person could sleep on each. The rest of us would sleep on the floor in sleeping bags. After Adam's parents went to bed upstairs, all the lights in the house were turned off as we settled in to watch the movie. Adam's basement wasn't entirely below ground, so there was a small window near the top of the wall behind us. At some point during the movie, I randomly turned around and glanced at the window, catching something unusual in my eye. Though visibility was limited, it looked like a man was peering in. I tapped on the shoulder of the person next to me. I don't recall who, and we both saw the guy. The kid next to me stood up, and everyone noticed him doing so. "Who is that guy?" he exclaimed, and we all turned our attention to the window. Astonishingly, the man was still there, unmoving. He was undoubtedly a grown man, but none of us recognized him. Panic ensued, and we all ran upstairs. Adam went to wake up his parents. A minute later, Adam's parents went downstairs, but the man had vanished. Adam's dad even searched outside with a flashlight, only to return a few minutes later, confirming the man was gone. Although I couldn't pinpoint the exact time, it was pretty late, perhaps around 11 p.m. Adam's parents offered us the option to call our parents for a ride home if we felt uncomfortable spending the night. Despite the scare, everyone decided to stay, reasoning that it was likely just some random guy who wouldn't return, especially with 6 of us there. Adam's parents went back to bed, and we returned to the basement to resume our movie. Occasionally, some of us glanced back at the window, but the man never reappeared. After the movie, most of us got tired. I was sleeping on the floor and settled into my sleeping bag, quickly falling asleep. The next thing I knew, I woke up in complete darkness. It wasn't quite time to get up, but I wasn't very tired anymore. As I sat up and looked around, I noticed the man looking in the window again, just like before. It was unbelievable. I crawled over to the closest person, a kid named Darian, pointed to the window, and when he saw it, he started running for the stairs. I followed him, and we knocked on Adam's parents' bedroom door. They woke up, and after hearing about the return of the mysterious man, they promptly called the police. When we returned downstairs, the man had disappeared once more. The police arrived, and everyone woke up, but the man was not found. We stayed up for the remainder of the night, and around 4 a.m., the man returned for the second time. Following this, our parents were called early in the morning, and they came to pick us up. I'd venture to guess that the man never returned to Adam's house after that. If he did, Adam would surely have informed me. That experience remains the scariest I've ever had at a sleepover. This happened just a few years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Me and my friend Ethan had planned to have a sleepover at some point during the summer. Me and Ethan were pretty close friends ever since we met, and we liked hanging out with each other all the time. We were only 15 and 16 when the story occurred. On this day, I was outside playing basketball when I got a call from Ethan. He asked me if I wanted to come over for the night because his parents were on a weekend trip. I told him that I would ask my parents, and when I did, they said that I could go. It was a Friday, and we would be able to hang out for the weekend. I packed my stuff and left my house. Ethan's house was only about a half a mile away from my house, so I could just walk there and be there within 10 minutes. Things were peaceful and quiet while I walked, but about halfway through I saw a man at the end of the road. He was walking in my direction but was walking on the left side of the street, and I was on the right. I thought nothing of it, but then the man started walking towards me. I was really alarmed by this because I didn't know who it was. When he got closer, I could now see what the man looked like. He was very tall, maybe 6'4", and wore a green jacket and jeans. I wondered what he wanted and was kind of getting freaked out because I was pretty short at 15 and only about 5'5". The man asked me where I was headed. I told him I was just going to a friend's house and he just said okay, and then continued walking. I found this really strange but just kept walking towards Ethan's house, which was now about 5 minutes away. When I got there, he was sitting on the couch waiting for me. We talked for about 10 minutes before turning on his Xbox and started playing video games. We ended up sitting there playing for a full 3 hours before getting tired. It was now about 9 p.m. or so, and we headed upstairs to Ethan's bedroom to decide how we would sleep. After that, we got pretty hungry, especially me because I hadn't eaten anything in a long time. Ethan said he would order us a pizza since he didn't feel like cooking. Either that or he probably didn't know how to cook. He was about to pick up his living room phone when suddenly it started ringing. I was weirded out by this, but Ethan thought it was his parents, so he picked it up. When he did, all we heard was what sounded like somebody breathing on the other end. I just about had a heart attack when I heard this, but Ethan had a confused look on his face. He then hung up the phone and started to dial the number for the nearest pizza place. He ordered and then hung up, and they said that they would be there in about 15 minutes. When the pizza arrived, Ethan paid the delivery guy, and then he left. We turned the TV back on and decided to watch a movie until we finished the pizza. We watched about 30 minutes of it, and then turned it off and headed upstairs. We were both pretty tired and we're going to go to bed. As soon as we went upstairs, though, we heard the living room phone ring again. We thought this was strange, and plus it was pretty late at night. Ethan and I walked back downstairs to answer the phone, but when we did, we heard the same breathing from earlier. Now I was officially creeped out. Ethan was now really annoyed and told whoever it was to stop, or he would call the police. Looking back, I don't know why he even said that because when he did, I could see the fear in his face. When the person on the other end of the phone spoke, he didn't harass Ethan or anything, but he did say something worse than that, at least in my opinion. The person on the phone said Ethan's real home address. As soon as he said that, Ethan had a face of fear and yelled at the person, demanding what he was talking about. "Look outside your living room window," they said. When we did, our hearts dropped, and this is something that I'll never forget. Directly in the middle of Ethan's front lawn was a man. We couldn't believe what we were looking at. We couldn't even see who it was now because of how dark it was. Ethan hung up the phone and continued to stare at the person. This lasted for about 30 seconds when suddenly, without warning, the man literally sprinted to the front door. When he reached it, he started slamming his whole body against it over and over again. Ethan and I ran upstairs and locked ourselves in his parents' bedroom. Ethan then took out his cell phone and called the police. They said they would arrive in 5 minutes and it made us feel a little bit better. About 3 minutes later, the man stopped slamming his body to the door, and we assumed that he left. About another 2 minutes later, the police arrived and did a search of the entire neighborhood, but couldn't find who the guy was. They told us that if anything else happened, to not hesitate to call again. When they left, we went back to Ethan's bedroom and talked about what had happened. I'll skip the entire conversation, but it will make a little more sense later. We were able to half sleep at around 12:30 or so. At around 3 in the morning, I was woken up by a knock at the front door. I woke up Ethan, and we both headed downstairs. We looked out of the window again, but this time didn't see anyone. But when we looked at the front door, we could see who it was. We saw that it was the same man that messed with us just 3 hours ago. We ran upstairs and called the police. They said they were on their way, but I was still worried about the man trying to break in. There was also no way we were going to fight back because this guy was very tall, Like I said before, I was only 5'5" at 15, and Ethan was only 5'7" at 16. We stayed in his parents' bedroom for about 5 minutes until we heard the sound of glass breaking coming from the living room. The man walked around downstairs for about 3 minutes before heading upstairs. We ran to Ethan's parents' bathroom and hid in there. About 2 minutes later, we heard the police sirens coming from about a block away. The police were able to make it inside. Ethan and I walked out into the hallway and saw downstairs. The police were holding and only something seemed familiar about him. My heart skipped a beat when I realized it was the same man who I had talked to on my way to Ethan's house. The police left with him, but we couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. At around 7 hours in the morning, I packed my stuff up and left. When I got back to my house, my parents were in the kitchen. They asked me how the sleepover was, and I said it was good because I didn't want to talk about it. Then I just went into my bedroom and laid on my bed, tired and exhausted. The next day, my parents got a call from Ethan's parents, and they told them that they didn't want me back at their house again. My mom looked confused when they said that and asked what they were talking about. They said that I broke the living room window, but I could hear Ethan telling his parents in the background that it wasn't me. I told my mom the whole story, and she believed me. They ended up arguing on the phone for a full 5 minutes before hanging up. That was the last time I went to Ethan's house, but at least we could have sleepovers at my house from that point on. I guess after the man continued walking after speaking to me, he must have followed me to Ethan's house, which explains how he got his address. Me and Ethan are still friends today, and nothing like that has ever happened since. To this day, I still wonder why the man followed me to his house.